to breathe so we don't cut off the beginning intro part of our episode.
Cool.
So
how you been?
Congrats on the little one too, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Of course. So all right. So probably about another 10 seconds here. Just got the Facebook live post up and running.
All right.
So we'll go live, and here's the pause. Welcome to another episode of the Go Route here on Fantasy Focus, brought to you by the Original Hooters. I'm Derek Tate alongside Jay Phifer. A lot of action just past the trade deadline, did we, in the NFL? Of course, we had week 8 of NFL action. Looking forward to week 9. But, Jay, congratulations. Recently heard that you had a new addition to the family, didn't you, over there?
Indeed. Thank you very much, Tater. Jackson Phifer was born a couple of days ago, so family is really excited about that and very grateful and very thank you.
Yeah, man. Jackson Phifer, almost the Jackson 5. Did you do that on purpose?
Absolutely. We're sticking with the Jays over here, man. I've got Jason Jr. and now I've got Jackson. So we're good. We're making it a family thing.
Congratulations, man. That's always awesome.
Thank you.
So, of course, we got our top takeaways from week 8. Also on the agenda, we're going to be handing out some game balls. Yep. MVP watch, power rankings up to this point. And, of course, looking forward to some of the week 9 action in the NFL. But we'll go ahead and start with top takeaways. I'm not going to lead you anywhere this week. I'm just going to let you sound off. What are some of your takeaways from what happened in week 8 of NFL action?
Well, of course, here in Chicago, I've got to start with what happened with the Bears, right? I mean, that's always the number one priority here on the Go Route. At least for me, it is. It was just a crap show, man. I mean, that's the only way you can put it. It's a game the Bears should have won. There's no doubt about it. It was tightly contested, which I kind of had a feeling it would have been. Some people may have thought it would have been a blowout, but I didn't really see that happening. Of course, a couple of turnovers by Mitchell Trubisky. Late in the game, in the second half, when you're trying to drive, when you're coming off of a drive that was pretty much A+ perfect for the Bears. They came out, they established a run, which was great. Finally, I think maybe Matt Nagy is loosening the cobwebs in his head a little bit and starting to really listen and trust the people around him. I'm sure this is not the first time where he's been told that he needs to feature the run game and feature David Montgomery. He made a point to do that last week against the Chargers, and it worked for most of the game, right? I mean, I know David Montgomery had a fumble, and that was kind of crucial as well.
Right.
But, other than that, everybody's going to talk about the field goal, right? So let's get that out of the way. I don't know if you heard the comments about Eddie Pinheiro. Did you hear some of the stuff that he actually said today or earlier? I think yesterday, actually, preferring a different spot over one spot. First of all,
I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care about that either. So the thing of it is, it's another loss in the Bears column, and it's getting to the point now where the season may be lost for the Bears. I know there's still time, but there's nothing that I think me or you have seen from this team that thinks they're actually going to turn it around, right? So it's and then of course you're looking up at the Packers and the Vikings, who we'll get into when we get into Power 5 rankings and all of that a little later on in the program, but it's at a point where you're at a tipping. It's a tipping for the Bears right now. And again, you can't have losses like that, especially at home against teams you're supposed to beat.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking up at the Lions too. You guys are at the bottom of the NFC North, which if you were to tell me halfway through the NFL season that the Chicago Bears would be at the bottom of the division, not even like in second place or tied for second or something of that nature. No, you guys are at the bottom, even below the Detroit Lions, which, by the way, the Detroit Lions are playing good football, and you guys are in a tough division. We knew that. These are things we knew heading into the season for the Chicago Bears, so that's not a shock. Things that are still – I'm not shocked anymore, by the way, that Mitchell Trubisky's playing.
No.
I'm going to – for this game, there's some blame to spread around. I thought that Matt Nagy finally committed to running the football. We saw David Montgomery's best game as a professional. I know that he had one other good game, but this is by far, I think, in a gotta-have-it game, in a game where you got to get off, you got to break that 2-game losing streak. I thought that Montgomery played very well. I know he had the fumble. He's fumbled 2 weeks in a row now, and you got to clean that up. But I saw good things from David Montgomery. The things that's concerned me the most, though, this offense had 3 possessions with goal-to-go situations inside the 10-yard line in the first half, and you come away with 9 points.
Yep.
I mean,
what do you say about that, Tater? I mean, listen, I wanted you to get up on that one. I was going to let you have that, but this is inexcusable type of stuff from Matt Nagy as a coach, in my opinion. This offense has way too many playmakers. He is actually way too creative as a play caller for the stuff that we saw in the red zone. It was predictable. It was ineffective, obviously, and it was uninteresting, and it was boring. And again, I keep going back to predictable. It looked like the Chargers defense, credit to them too. I mean, at least a little bit. They came out to play last week, but still, 3 possessions in the red zone in the first half. You only come away with 9 points. Inexcusable.
I don't know if I've ever seen, and I know the Chicago fan base is a passionate group, and that's one of the best things about, one of my favorite things about the city of Chicago when I lived there is that they're true passionate sports fans.
Yep.
Clearly, they had high hopes and expectations for this football team because they went into halftime with a lead at Soldier Field, and they were booed off the field.
Yep.
Which I can understand that there's a certain amount of frustration with this offense. And yeah, I mean, the first one really sticks out to me, man. I'll be honest, Jay, like when Kyle Fuller gets that interception of Phillip Rivers, brings it all the way back to the 4-yard line, and you get three straight passes. Not one carry for David Montgomery, which I think he's a very good in between the tackles ball carrier, even though we haven't seen it consistently throughout the season. It's because Matt Nagy has not consistently given him the football.
Exactly.
So he's a running back that needs to get into a rhythm and get touches early.
Exactly.
Tariq Cohen's there for the change of pace, pop up and play every now and then. Like, that's not Montgomery's game. He's a grinder. He's somebody that you got to get him. He wears down a defense. For me, that first possession was a microcosm and symbolic of the struggles that the Bears have had all season on the offensive side of the football.
Yes.
So Matt Nagy, though, for me, and I know that this has been a little bit contested, I personally think you had enough time to be able to run a couple plays to make that not a 41-yard field goal on Eddie Pinheiro to try to win the damn football game. I understand his job as a kicker is to make the kick, and it's less than 45 yards, but that is not a chip shot in the Windy City. That's not a chip shot no matter where you're kicking the football. So taking a knee and not even handing it to Montgomery, who was averaging 5 yards a carry in this one, at least to make it a little bit more manageable, that to me, I got to point the finger at Nagy and go, what the hell, man?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna respectfully disagree with you on that one, Taylor. Right, I know that side of it, and I've definitely seen and heard it and talked about people that share your similar feelings about it. I always go back to, if you hand it off to Montgomery, who had already fumbled before in the game, Lord forbid he coughs it up again. There's always that possibility, and I get the Windy City outside issues part, but this is a kicker issue to me. It just is.
Well, you guys would only have 2 wins on the season if it wasn't for.
Say again?
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just went. Pinheiro did win you that game against Washington, though, and we see how bad Washington is now.
Yeah. Denver, actually, it was against Denver. No problem. But again, agreed. But you still have to make the kick. Whether it's from 41 or from 37 yards. If it was from 38 yards, it looked like to me from the trajectory of that ball, he might have doinked it off the left upright completely. So, I mean, I'm not sure about the moving it and maybe getting a couple of plays in. I'm just not sure about that. To me, you just got to make the kick, man. You got to make the kick.
Ultimately, you're probably not going to win or lose the football game on whether David Montgomery picks up 2 to 7 yards on a couple carries or something of that nature. I understand where you're coming from, and I think that I have more issues with Matt Nagy outside of taking a knee to ensure that he gets a field goal attempt than I do. But to me, that's part of it because I don't agree with that. I think you said, what if David Montgomery fumbles? That's playing scared. and you ain't going to win a damn Super Bowl if you're playing scared. If you don't trust the running back that you gave the ball 27 times, he found the end zone on the day. He also controlled the pace of that game on the offensive side and made their offense look more efficient and effective than they have in a month. Then to me, I think you give Montgomery a couple chances. But again, that's not the bigger issue. The bigger issue is that I think Matt Nagy's in and over his head big time.
It's starting to look like that, certainly, Tater. Again, I think he was the shining star, one of the guys that was going to be another young head coach in the NFL, and
the case
set the world on fire with his offensive prowess, and sure, it lasted for a season, right? But you can't rest on the laurels of last season. And
no, you cannot.
This is I think it's an offensive philosophy issue as well, because I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you last week. I feel like I may have, but where the hell are the RPOs in the offense?
Oh, they're non-existent.
They've completely disappeared. And you're telling me in the red zone, you get 3 chances, you can't run an RPO with Trubisky, Cohen, and possibly Montgomery in the backfield? Are you kidding me?
Well, the problem is that I've even seen them call a couple RPOs, and the problem is when you have an indecisive quarterback that is playing with no confidence right now, who doesn't trust his eyes, and you're asking him to make 1 or 2 reads, and we talked, and I know it's been a big thing this week, and I've seen a lot of stuff on social media about Sam Darnold seeing ghosts, saying that he was seeing ghosts. I think that Mitchell Trubisky's seeing ghosts out there. He is not playing with any sort of confidence, on time, on rhythm, and you're asking him to not only make a decision on whether he wants to keep the football or give it to a tailback, but then also with the option of being able to throw it on a hot route real quick. This guy he's not even capable, it seems like, of making 1 read per play.
Yeah. I there's nothing I can really say to really argue that either, Tater. It's getting to a point now where, again, we've already talked about him being, regressed in this system, in this offense. I don't know what it is. Is it the confidence? We know the offensive line isn't playing well, and it hasn't played well all season. I know that's a big part of it too. But still, there's the lack of progression. There is the lack of, again, confidence. There's the little bit of moxie that he showed last year, right? I mean, a little bit of the swagger that it takes to be an NFL quarterback. It's just lost from Trubisky at this point, and you got to wonder if he can get it back.
Yeah, at this point, I honestly think, and I know why it's difficult to come to this conclusion or decision if you're Ryan Pace or Matt Nagy, because once you say we are benching Mitchell Trubisky, it's not due to injury, we are benching Mitchell Trubisky, you are essentially saying we want nothing to do with him and he's no longer a part of our future, which puts this organization, because I honestly believe, and anybody can disagree with me, and that's fine. Sound off in the comments. Let me know if you disagree. I think Chase Daniel gives this team a better chance to win football games.
Yep.
I do. I that's what I see. Even I know he threw a game-ending pick, but that was against the time against the Raiders, where the Raiders jammed the football down their throat the entire game, and Josh Jacobs ran for over 100 yards and 2 scores. So there's issues across the board. And guess who I point the finger at? As much as I like to blame the quarterback and the offensive side, I blame the signal caller, man. The Bears are not ready to play. They're constantly getting out coached, and he has a very talented roster.
Yeah.
So to me, the fall guy is Matt Nagy.
I'm starting to think that as well, because again, he's got to be the one that's got to instill this confidence and instill this attitude throughout the team, and you're just not seeing it, especially for a guy that was supposed to be offensive and forward thinking and groundbreaking. You're just not seeing it on any level, really. And again, it took until week 8 for this guy to start really giving the ball to his workhorse and David Montgomery. So I mean, what are we really talking about here? Do we need to start over as a franchise? God, I hope not. But it just doesn't seem like at this point that Nagy may be the right guy either.
Correct. So we'll go ahead and transition. One of my top takeaways is that the San Francisco 49ers I knew this defense was for real, but seeing Tevin Coleman dice up a defense that was playing very well heading into that matchup between the Carolina Panthers, winning 4 straight with a backup quarterback in Kyle Allen. Now we saw Tevin Coleman just explode, and we saw Kyle Allen for the first time look like a legitimate backup quarterback. He had no answers. Not that a lot of teams have had answers for that 49er defense this season, but we saw Kyle Allen come crashing back to earth. But 51 points.
Yeah.
San Francisco 49ers, give me some of your takeaways. Was this more so just Kyle Allen being exposed, or are the San Francisco 49ers that damn good?
Well, listen, I'm definitely going to talk about the 49ers in a few minutes when we get to the power rankings, but they're absolutely number one on my top takeaway outside of the Bears as well. They are for real, and the rest of the NFL needs to look out.
Notice.
They have completely pretty much demolished everybody they played. I mean, for lack of a better phrase. And granted, you're at home against Carolina, who I think we both thought was a pretty good doggone team, even with Kyle Allen at quarterback. They just dismantled them, and the game was over kind of early. And you've got that young Bosa guy on that defensive line, and he's young, but he's leading that defense right now. And of course, it's anchored by the veteran and Richard Sherman, who's just become more of a leader on the field now, and has let his play do the talking more so than his mouth in the second half of his career. It's a joy to watch. Again, Kyle Shanahan is probably coach of the year at this point, I think, and of course you've got Jimmy G doing his thing at quarterback. What else can you say about Tevin Coleman, right? I think what you're seeing now is the big difference between him being on the Niners offense and him not being on the Atlanta Falcons offense. I mean, that guy is an all-world type of running back. He fits that system perfectly. And again, the rest of the league has definitely put on notice by what the Niners did to the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, they've only allowed 32 points over the last 4 football games, and including putting a goose egg on the Washington Redskins, which I know that they're a mess. But they only allowed the Cleveland Browns to score 3 points in a football game. Held Sean McVay and Jared Goff at home to only 7 points. And then a red-hot Carolina Panthers team just got smacked when they went into San Francisco. The defense, like you mentioned, Bosa, DeForest Buckner, Solomon Thomas. I mean, collectively as a unit, I understand that Richard Sherman has turned back the clock. I mean, a lot of people like to think last year like he was on the decline. He was also coming off of an ACL injury.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you got to remember that. These guys are, even though they're professional athletes, and it's not a death sentence when you tear an ACL like it was like 30 years ago, but it still sometimes takes a player a full year to fully recover. And Sherman looks like himself out there, and he gives that team and that defense an attitude, and they all are playing with their ears pinned back and just straight attacking opposing teams. I have certainly started to come around on the San Francisco 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo continues to be a little bit up and down, drives me a little bit nuts, but boy, they have the best play caller in the NFL. The only reason I'm not saying Shanahan is my coach of the year so far is because Sean Payton has done a hell of a job.
Right.
And also Frank Reich for the Indianapolis Colts with no Andrew Luck. I mean, absolute props to him as well. But I do have to agree with you in the sentiment that the Kyle Shanahan has a team that no one expected to be 7-0 through this point of the season, has them playing fantastic football. Yeah. Even though I have questions about their quarterback, I trust their offense because of Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's wonderful to watch, right? I mean, you've got a pretty good coach, and even though the quarterback may not be all world, you see the marriage of the two minds, and you're getting the best out of everybody on that team. It's really, really fun, and I'm sure Niners fans are just having. Listen, the Niners fans haven't had a whole lot to cheer about in recent years. Let's just put it out there, right? So I'm sure they're enjoying it out there in San Francisco, and it's fun to watch. And that actually leads me into another sort of takeaway from the week. A long shot, right? But it looks like the NFC West just may get 3 teams in the playoffs at this point. Seattle just went on the road. I talked about the Falcons and their lack of offense, even though they were pretty game last week. They were up to the challenge against the Seahawks, visiting them in Atlanta. But Seahawks sit at 6-2. The Rams win their game last week. They're at 5-3 at this point, halfway through the season. Again, it's a long shot, but that NFC West is looking pretty doggone tough right now, Derek.
They're stacked. And right now, with the Philadelphia Eagles not playing, they're playing up and down football. Right now, they're a 500 football team. I mean, I think really only the division winner is going to come out of the NFC East. I don't think 2 teams get in from the NFC East. The NFC South right now, I mean, we just saw what happened to the Carolina Panthers. even though they've won 4 straight football games prior to that, and they beat some decent teams, I'm still not 100% sold on Kyle Allen. And if Cam Newton's not healthy, or if they try to bring Cam back before he's fully healthy, I get it. And the Buccaneers, even though they're 2-5, they're competitive in most every football game that they played in, and can certainly make some noise down the backstretch, even though I don't trust Jameis Winston as far as I can throw him. The NFC North, you expect the Packers and the Vikings both to make the playoffs. So if we're taking just the division winners and one NFC North team to make the wild card, not 3 playoff I don't see 3 playoff teams coming out of the NFC West, but they are playing a lot of damn good football. And it's going to be real interesting because the Niners don't look like they're going to have a late or a second half season collapse. So who's not going to get in between the Seahawks and the Rams?
Well, and that's part of my point too. It's like both of these two teams, and the Seahawks and the Rams, they're probably still going to beat up on each other. I think they've got a game left against each other, so that's really going to count. And again, I mentioned a long shot, but I think the Rams, I mean, they've sort of turned their season around in a sense. I mean, they didn't get off to a great start as we all thought they would.
Right.
But Sean McVay is maybe found the confidence in his quarterback. And of course, if you got a guy like Cooper Kupp, your slot receiver, just running all over the field, and they've got a good offense. So that's the thing. If the defense can come around and play up to par, I think, they can definitely make a run at a thing, even though I agree with you, it'll still be a long shot.
Yeah, but when you start looking at those 5 teams, whether it be the Packers, Vikings, and then the 3 NFC West teams, I mean, which quarterback do you trust the least? Yeah. And I mean, it's probably Garoppolo, but I see Garoppolo having a better defense than the likes of Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins, there's just something that I don't trust about him in big situations. But certainly the Vikings have certainly been playing some good football. They've won 4 straight. So I can't knock Kirk Cousins right now. However, I just got one more takeaway, and it's the Cleveland Browns. I think they're a bad football team, man. As much as everybody wanted to kind of crown this team, and I don't want to harp on a team that has certainly gotten plenty of media coverage for absolutely no reason, not deserving of it heading into this year. Cleveland Browns are 2-5. And I know that they've had a tough schedule up to this point, but at some point you can't make that excuse anymore. Right. It's an NFL lineup. It's an NFL schedule.
You got to win.
Play tough teams every other week.
Yep.
So the Browns, outside of one game against the Baltimore Ravens, I think that they've been a damn no-show. And Freddie, speaking of coaches that look like they're in over their head, Freddie Kitchens. I mean, I got a point. It seems like every week this team does not come out ready to play. And you turn the ball over. And granted, Nick Chubb, I mean, Freddie Kitchens can't carry the football. Nick Chubb fumbled on 2 consecutive plays.
Right.
But there's just something about this team that every single week they come out flat. And you've got too much young talent. It's not like you're a bunch of old wily veterans that get off to a slow start. I mean, you've got a bunch of young pups that still have something to prove in this league, and you can't even get them up to play football.
Yeah. The thing I think with Freddie Kitchens is that, like you said, they come out flat. They're a team that doesn't pay attention to detail. I think they're a team that has a lot of guys, and I think the coaches included in this, that think that they can kind of just walk out on the field and perform. And that is not the case in the National Football League. The National Football League will embarrass you every week if you really think that is the case. And so far, that has been the case for the Cleveland Browns this year. Like you said, Tater, it's been one game against the Baltimore Ravens, and that has been it. Your boy Baker Mayfield, I know you saw earlier today, he walked out of his conference interview earlier, got into an exchange with a reporter there in Cleveland. This has been his attitude. If you read everything that has been reported about him so far, he has an air of just, he's better, and that's not going to work. You need to humble yourself in this league. You can't come in and, again, just think that because you had a good few games last year that you're just going to come into this year and it's going to be the same stuff. It's not. He's getting his comeuppance. So is the team. I agree completely with you. I think Freddie Kitchens is in over his head. I'm not sure why he was hired in the first place.
Copycat league. And by the way, who was the head coach last year when the Browns actually made a slight wild card push towards the back end of last year. It wasn't Freddie Kitchens.
No,
it was Williams. It was Greg Williams who made that push as the interim head coach. And yet you don't hire him. You give the job to Freddie Kitchens, an inexperienced head coach with a bunch of, I mean, I don't want to say that they're, I want to say big personalities. I'll use that. They got big personalities, and they certainly are not afraid to speak their mind. Baker Mayfield, with 27 touchdown passes as a rookie, it certainly gave me the feeling that this young man can do some big things in the league. But dude, even the most talented of players, no matter regardless of the position, but especially at the quarterback spot, you got to prep week in, week out, continue to work your ass off because it's a copycat league. It doesn't matter that you threw 27 touchdown passes as a rookie. What are you going to do to build upon that? What are you going to do when people start hitting you with a counterpunch on Sundays? And you added Odell Beckham Jr., and yet this man has regressed significantly. So this is a bad football team, man. And I got to point the finger at Freddie Kitchens because and certainly Baker and even Odell Beckham Jr. Like these guys are accountable. They got to be held accountable.
There's no leadership. There's no leadership on the team right now. They are void of that. And again, that starts with the coach, but it also it goes back to your supposed franchise quarterback. Right.
And then right now it's a mess. But you know what? Let's go ahead and transition from the bad to what we saw was the good in week 8. We got a couple game balls to hand out. Who are you giving the game ball to for week 8's performance?
So I'm going to start a little bit off the beaten path here. I know it was against a bad team in the Miami Dolphins, but I'm giving my first game ball of the night to Mr. James Conner, who I think had a really bounce back type of game on Monday night. Again, against the Dolphins, it's at home, but the offense was off to a slow start. They got things going a little late. 23 carries, 145 yards, and a touchdown. I know you're smiling. It's James Conner. I know. I get it. But again, I thought he played well. And again, we talked about a couple of other players I want to give some game balls out to. So I'm starting with James Conner from the Pittsburgh Steelers.
You know what? Hey, I'm never ever going to talk. I'm not going to give you a hard time about ever giving James Conner a game ball. That man's done a lot to even get back onto the football field. I tip my hat to James Conner, who's had a slow start to the 2019 season, but particularly against the Chargers in this past week. I mean, I thought that he played hard. I know he's dealing with a shoulder injury. I hope he's going to be okay. But, I mean, James Conner, when Mason Rudolph got off to a slow start, certainly they were able to lean on Conner and get them back in a football game. And, by the way, the Miami Dolphins the past couple of weeks have actually taken the lead against the Buffalo Bills. They've taken the lead against now against the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. So, potentially they're not as bad as they were historically to start the year. They're just not winning football games, and that's the way the Miami Dolphins 2019 season is going. So I'm going to go ahead and give a game ball to a guy that you probably don't expect either, and that's Gardner Minshew. Minshew mania, brother.
Nice.
Look, when asked this season if you even thought the Jags would be 4-4 through the first 8 weeks or first 8 games for Jacksonville, and that I'm saying, would you even have thought that with Nick Foles under center? Most people would have been like, maybe. There's probably like a 40% shot or something like that, like a coin flip for them to be a 500 football team. If you would have told me that in game 1 of the season that Nick Foles was hurt and has been out through the first 8 weeks, there's no way in hell I'm telling you that I thought Gardner Minshew would lead them to 4 wins.
It is Minshew mania, man.
Minshew mania. I think that they may have actually found something real in Gardner Minshew. I can't believe I'm saying that, but 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And for a rookie that doesn't really have a true number one, I like what DJ Chark has done. I like what DD Westbrook has done, but he doesn't have a AJ Green or a DeAndre Hopkins to lean on. He's doing some really good things.
Yeah.
And I got to give props where props are due. Now he's heading into a week 9 matchup that can get them tied, or at least win total-wise, tied with the top of the division with a matchup against the Texans this week. I know the Colts are 5-2, but I just got to tip my hat to this kid. 3 touchdowns, nearly 300 yards passing, no interceptions. I got to give my props to him.
Absolutely. He's playing well. And again, like you said earlier, if you would have said that the Jaguars are a 500 team without Nick Foles, I would have said, what kind of drugs are you taking? Seriously.
And can I ask you?
Minshew's playing great. Again, he's got chemistry with, like you said, DJ Chark. I know he's not probably a number one in a lot of people's eyes, but they've certainly got a chemistry going on. Got to watch out for that D.D. Westbrook injury. I think it's a shoulder that he's been battling in the last few weeks. So got to keep an eye on that.
Chris Conley's playing some good football too.
Yeah, absolutely. And also with all the Jalen Ramsey crap that was going on behind the scenes, and again, who would have thought the Jaguars would be where they are with a chance to, like you said, be a top of the division coming up this week?
Yeah, no, I got to tip my hat to not only Gardner Minshew. Any other game balls that you want to hand out? There was a bunch of very good performances this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Both guys that I've got going on my list this week, we talked about a little bit. Cooper Kupp, obviously 220 yards and a score out in London for the Rams. I mean, this guy, what a story, right? I mean, with the injury that he had, for him to come back on the field and perform the way he is. Again, I such a talented guy, was on nobody's radars. I think he was an undrafted free agent. I think coming out of college.
No, a couple was drafted. He was like, I think actually in like the 4th round or something like that.
Okay. I may be thinking about somebody else. My apologies on that.
It's all good.
Sorry.
He's having a hell of a year though.
Well, he really is though. He really is. And again, I mean, 220 yards. I know it was out in London, and it can be, a little bit tricky for guys to have big performances, but he certainly did, and he definitely gets a game ball from me. Yeah,
Kupp. I almost got to say, I'm starting to wonder with the fact that they're not giving. I mean, Todd Gurley isn't Todd Gurley. I'm starting to wonder if Cooper Kupp is the most important piece to this Rams offense. I'm saying skill position wise. I mean, if you take Jared Goff off of this offense, then I think they're in big trouble. But saying non-quarterback, do I think Cooper Kupp at their peak is a better player than Todd Gurley? No, I don't. But I will tell you, for what it allows Jared Goff to do as a quarterback and to make this offense tick with everything that like Sean McVay likes to do in the passing game and use his wide receivers in run blocking situations as well. Kupp does it all. Certainly worthy of a game ball. The other one I'm going to give up, Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
We've mentioned him a couple weeks back when he scored 4 rushing touchdowns against the Dallas Cowboys. Now he had, 2 touchdowns. One of them got called back. He could have had a hat trick on another 60-yarder, which, by the way, cost me a fantasy football game. But I digress here. But Aaron Jones, I'm not going to say that he's a top 5 back, because going into the year, if you would have asked me who are the top 5 most talented running backs in the league, I wouldn't have mentioned Aaron Jones. But damn, does he look like one of the most productive and efficient running backs. He's just a gamer. He's got those instincts, plays through contact well. He's got balance. He's elusive. He's got a very good start-stop acceleration and agility. You wouldn't think it, but he just is a complete football player. And I think he's been, even though Aaron Rodgers' numbers have improved over the last 2 weeks, oddly enough without Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones has kind of been the one constant.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really believe that as well, as far as Green Bay is and this offensive game is concerned as well. We know Aaron Rodgers got up to that slow start, but this kid has been all world for them. I mean, he's catching passes out of the backfield. He's great in
receptions. He leads them in receptions.
Yep, catching passes out of the backfield, and of course, he's excellent in the run game and doing well in the blocking game as well. So it looks like Matt LaFleur and that Green Bay offense have certainly hit their stride. They can do it pretty much, throughout the run game and, of course, with the pass game as well. And they've still got to get guys healthy.
Absolutely. So, I mean, before we transition to like our MVP watch conversation, et cetera, we do have some people joining us live. Being Dried Ocean, what up? Uncle Pete, congrats, Jay, by the way, he was saying.
Thank you, Uncle Pete.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, we are going to get some fantasy questions that we can touch on real quick. We'll go ahead and take this for the rest of the year. Do you like Cortland Sutton or Mohamed Sanu for the rest of the year now that he's with the New England Patriots? For me, it's Cortland Sutton pretty easily.
Yeah.
New England likes, you're just a cog in that Patriots wheel. I don't like that. You'll have a couple big games from Mo Sanu, but for me, it's Sutton, who they wouldn't have traded Emmanuel Sanders if they didn't see something in this kid.
Yeah, agreed. I think Cortland Sutton is the better choice there. He's more consistent.
Just got a trade offer for Kupp and Zeke and Panthers D. I would get Dalvin Cook, I'm assuming. Kenny Galladay, would you take it? No, hell no. No, hell no.
Nope.
As much as Dalvin Cook's had a great year, no, dude. Whether it be Cooper Kupp or Amari Cooper and Zeke Elliott, no, I'm staying away from that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, just wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Here we go. Rock out. Of course, one of the best usernames on YouTube. Baxter, Zeke, Coleman, Singletary. My wide receivers are Hopkins, Cooper Kupp. Okay, so you're trying to give us a little bit of context to it. I still wouldn't do it, man. I'm still trying to go for the value. Danny Messi, Fantasy Focus. Thanks for joining us. What are your thoughts on David Johnson for the rest of the season? It's been weird. David Johnson's been really dealing with a couple different injuries. Seems like he had a back injury. Now he's got an ankle injury. Now Chase Edmonds is out for the Arizona Cardinals for the Thursday night tilt against the San Francisco 49ers. They just traded for Kenyon Drake. I still like David Johnson the rest of the season, but I feel like they're not going to rush him back now that they made that trade for Kenyon Drake.
Yeah, agreed. He's been battling injuries, for a few seasons now, and he's great when he's there. But again, he just is what it is at this point with David Johnson.
Yeah, Mikey Dillard. Oh, he's the bee's knees. I'm not exactly sure you're talking about. If you're talking about us, we are the bee's knees. Appreciate it. And then, of course, we got Uncle Pete. Give Jay a big old cigar. If I had one, I'd give it to him. I'm in Cadillac, Michigan. He's in Chicago, Illinois, but he does deserve a cigar. And AFC North, who's in second place, he is a big Steelers fan. Yeah. Steelers are playing some good football. Yeah. Believe it or not, I know they're only 2 games out, but I don't feel like the Steelers are done quite yet.
I don't either, and especially if, again, Mason Rudolph can not have so many slow starts as he has so far this year. He's got to be a little more consistent in that area. Juju Smith-Schuster, got to get more from him, even though he did have a big game last week. And, of course, if James Conner can stay healthy, their offense, I think, can still put up some points.
Don't sleep on Deontay Johnson either. Deontay Johnson's a nice little player out of Toledo. Matt Bucks, Matty B, my boy, one of the OG hosts of the Fantasy Focus pod. Will the Browns get to 11 wins? Asking for a friend. I'll let you take this one.
Absolutely not.
Hell no. Hell no. And that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. MVP watch. We got it coming on. Now, it's a little weird because we don't have Patty Mahomes anymore. Right. It really feels like it's become a 3-horse race. For me, it's Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, and Russell Wilson. Those are the 3. But if you had to right now, if the season ended today, who would be your MVP and why?
Yeah, if the season ended today, I would just have to give it at this point to Aaron Rodgers. I think if you told me with the struggles that the offense has had earlier in the season for Green Bay, I just would have said that it's probably, Green Bay is going to struggle and somebody else in the NFC North is probably going to take over. But I got to give it to Rodgers at this point. He's starting to play well these past, 2 to 4 weeks here in the season. Again, they haven't had a healthy roster fully yet offensively. He's starting to utilize Aaron Jones a whole lot and lean on that, which has been great. But he's been the unquestioned leader of that team. He has been for years now. So at this point, if I had to give it to somebody, it would be Aaron Rodgers up in Green Bay.
So I don't have any problem with giving it to Aaron Rodgers. Certainly any of the guys we just mentioned, you can certainly make a case for. But I am going to flip that coin and give my case for Deshaun Watson. Look, I know that this team has been a little bit up and down. They lost to a Panthers team that didn't even have Cam Newton. There's been a couple games where they barely eked one out against the Jacksonville Jaguars. This offense has been a little bit up and down at times, but still the one constant has been Deshaun Watson. And even though they traded for Laramie Tunsil and a couple other offensive line pieces up front, they still haven't really been able to consistently protect Deshaun Watson, which means he's having to create, which means he's taking a lot of hits. But man, there's just some sort of it factor about Watson.
Yep.
Even against the Oakland Raiders, which, by the way, I'm not talking smack about the Oakland Raiders. John Gruden has them playing some good football this season. I tell you what, man, you shouldn't be talking smack about me anyway, man. Anyway, as far as Deshaun Watson goes, there's just something about that it factor that if you take him off that football team, I think the Texans are a very average football team. I really, truly do. And I know DeAndre Hopkins, opposing defenses are doing everything they can to really eliminate his best option. Yeah. But for me, it's Watson. Watson has done more for the Houston Texans this season than what I feel like Aaron Rodgers has done. It's no disrespect to Aaron Rodgers, who has certainly played a very good role of game manager through the first month of the season. Now, he's certainly he wasn't a game manager against the Oakland Raiders.
No, he was not.
No, he was not. And that was without Devontae Adams. But for me, if you take Watson away from the Texans, they're a very below average football team.
Yeah, and you know that's a great points that you make there, Tater. The thing I think that you love about Deshaun Watson as well is that he's a winner, man.
Yeah,
and he does what it takes to win the game. And you know he may not have he'll have big games. I'm not saying that he's an average quarterback by any means. He's a guy that's capable of having big games. But even in the games where he's somewhat average, where it's he may have thrown a couple of picks, he still has his team in a position to win week in and week out. And you gotta love that. And of course, me being a Bears fan is just loving the fact that he's in Houston and not in Chicago.
Yeah, I'm sure that, and Patrick Mahomes too.
Yeah,
and not only that, you traded up one position. Hey, but by the way, I'm not. By the way, my Bucks GM may have actually gotten caught with a burner account, so that's real fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, Jason Light. Awesome. Oh yeah, what an asshat. I mean, I'm surprised. I've been slamming Jason Light on social media for the last 5 years or so. I'm shocked I haven't gotten anything from Jameis 1 of 1, which is the alleged burner account of aforementioned GM Bucks, Jason Light. So anyway, moving on to power rankings. Actually, my favorite segment of the
let's do it.
So every week we got to reassess and recalculate what we think our top 5 teams are. So go ahead and let it rip. Who you got at the halfway point of the season?
Yeah, I've definitely got some movement here at the halfway point. At number 5, I'm going to go with the Seahawks. I talked about them a little bit ago. It was tough between them and the Vikings for me coming in at number 5. But the one thing that I think cannot be denied about the Seahawks team is that they are undefeated away from CenturyLink Field. They've lost a couple of games at home, if you can believe that. But they're winning games on the road. And again, it's just going to do nothing but bode well from them as the season goes on. You know how I feel about Russell Wilson. If you take Russell Wilson off of the Seahawks, I think they're a scramble.
Same argument as Deshaun Watson. Same argument.
Yeah. So even though Chris Carson is having a great year, I still need him to hold on to the damn football. And he doesn't have a true number 1 wide receiver. So I love what the Seahawks are doing right now. They sit at 6-2. They come in at number 5 on my power rankings. At number 4, you may not like this one, Tater, and I dropped them a couple of spots, but I'm going with the Green Bay Packers, and I will tell you why when I get into my other teams. Listen, they're coming off of a win. A win is a win is a win, even though it was against the Pat Mahomes-less Kansas City Chiefs, which they had to hold off because Matt Moore was having a very good game. So it was a good contest. They had to hold off a good team at home. So they're coming off of a win. Everybody will say, well, why are you dropping them 2 spots? Well, let me get into that, right? At number 3, I've got the New Orleans Saints. Listen,
at 3?
Yeah. Let me listen. All
right.
You know why I've got the 2 teams ahead of them. You know why. So the Saints are at number 3. Breeze is back. He played well, of course, 3 touchdowns this past week. I know it was against the Arizona Cardinals, but we all think New Orleans is one of those top teams to beat in the entire league. And at number 2, I'm dropping them down the spot, but it's still the New England Patriots, Tater. They're undefeated. Okay. They're undefeated, and that still matters in this league. I know some people will say that they've had an easy schedule up to this point. It doesn't matter to me. You win the football games that you play on the schedule, and the Patriots are still doing that. They still got a great defense, and we'll see what that Mohamed Sanu trade did for them. I know it's a guy that Bill Belichick has had his eye on for a few years now, if you read a lot of the reports there. So we'll see, if that actually gives a boost to their offense or not. Not that it really needs it. At number 1, all the way up to number 1, it is the San Francisco 49ers, Tater.
Man, all right.
Listen, they are putting the league on notice that they are for real. They're getting it done on both sides of the ball. Of course, the one question mark is at quarterback, but you got to love what Kyle Shanahan is doing out there in the Bay Area. They've got one of the top offenses and top defenses in the league. You got a guy like Tevin Coleman that can go off at any moment. I think that Emmanuel Sanders trade, I think it's big time. I think that rejuvenates him a little bit. I know he's not necessarily a number 1 wide receiver. I get that. But I think he's a guy that can really shine in that offense. He's a possession type of guy. I think if you throw him the ball, he's going to catch it most of the time. So if he can stay healthy, I think that's going to bode well and just add to that already pretty deadly Niner offense. And that rounds out my top 5 in the power rankings.
Oh man, I'm not hating on your power rankings whatsoever, but we got. So how about this? We got the same exact 5 teams, but just shuffled around a little bit.
Okay.
And allow me to jump in. So it was the Seahawks and Vikings that I was sitting there wrestling about it for a good 5 minutes. I was like, man, the reason why is because when you look at the Seahawks and the Vikings, right? Who has a better roster? It's 100% the Vikings, and 100%. They have a better running back in Dalvin Cook over Chris Carson. Better wide receivers by a landslide over the wide receivers. No disrespect to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, but they're not as good as Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs.
Nope.
I mean, defensive-wise, collectively as a unit, I still think the Vikings are a better unit altogether. But I'll be damned if I don't think that Russell Wilson is that much better than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Agreed.
And we are going to find out real quick if that is the case. Or not Jimmy Garoppolo, but Kirk Cousins. My apologies.
Right.
I still think he's a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo, too. But I think the 49ers have that much better of a roster that I have them higher in my power rankings.
Okay.
But I do have the Seahawks coming in at 5. I have the Packers coming in at 4 as well. As much as I think that they got lucky to win that football game against the Detroit Lions.
Right.
Win is a win is a win. He still threw a hell of a pass to Allen Lazard, and he had his team in field goal range prior to getting that extra additional illegal hands to the face that they just allowed to run out the clock and not give the Lions an opportunity to respond. So I still have the Packers at 4. They're playing very good football. And, dude, if Rodgers can keep playing at this level and get back Devontae Adams, then they can climb higher than 4 on my power rankings list. But for now, they sit at 4. At 3, I have the San Francisco 49ers, and I know you bumped them all the way up to 1. If smacking around the Carolina Panthers was enough for them to jump up above the New England Patriots for you, then that's fine. But for me, as much as I love their defense, and they have the best play caller in football in Kyle Shanahan, and they can run the football, and they can control the clock, and that translates very well to the postseason. Jimmy Garoppolo, and I don't know if Emmanuel Sanders – as much as I think he can still play, and it's miraculous that he still looks as even productive as he does with coming off of a torn Achilles at the age of 32, which is just tip of the hat. Incredible. But I am not going to overlook the shortcomings I still think that Jimmy Garoppolo has in his game. I think he'll be exposed by a better coaching staff on the defensive side of the football. At 2, this 2 stays the same for me. I have the Patriots at 2 and the Saints at 1.
Okay.
Both teams handled business last week.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think looked more impressive? I mean, probably the New England Patriots, but we saw that Drew Brees came back in midseason form after not playing for over a month.
Yep.
So for me, and another reason why when I put the 49ers at 3, I mean, of the 3 top teams that have all pretty equal talent across the board, for the most part, you can pick your spots here and there. What does it come down to as the ultimate tiebreaker? It's the signal caller. And Drew Brees and Tom Brady, I trust far and away more than I trust Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's why I have the Niners. It's really I'm a Jimmy Garoppolo hater, apparently. Anybody who's listening from San Francisco hates my guts.
No. Listen, your reasoning is certainly sound there. I mean, if you had to pick between those 3 quarterbacks, nobody's going to mistake Jimmy G for being number 1 on any of those lists. I get that totally. But I just think they are a complete team right now. I think at this point, halfway through the season, I think they're the most complete team that we have in the league at this point. But again, it's a fluid situation, right? I mean, I didn't even have the Niners. I don't even think I had the Niners in my power rankings last week. So 51 points, I get it. It's at home, but it's 51 points, Tater. So I mean, that does something. That opened a lot of eyes for me. And again, it's on both sides of the ball. Both sides of the ball is what I love about the San Francisco 49ers at this point.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about up to this point and everything that we have only till now, granted a lot of football to play, but up to this point, they are really, I mean, you can't do better than undefeated.
Nope.
You can't do better than that. The Patriots and the 49ers certainly, doesn't matter who they've played up to this point, they've handled their business. Now, we're going to take a look at week 9 of the NFL, some preview matchups that are coming up, and we already have an upset that was called by one of our listeners, Danny Messe. And thinking that the Bucks are going to upset the Seahawks. And then Matt Bucks aptly responds, Danny, I want to know what you're drinking, because What the hell are you talking about? The Bucs are going to upset the Seahawks. I certainly don't have that happening, and I'm a cockeyed Bucs optimist. But tell me a little bit about some of the other matchups that are. We'll talk on the Bucs and Seahawks, but are there any other matchups that are kind of catching your eye this upcoming?
Yeah. I actually like the Colts and Steelers coming up. I know that's an early game on CBS. Again, both of these teams, they've been playing football, great football as of late. The Colts are on the road against the Steelers, and again, they're definitely not mathematically out of anything in the AFC North at this point. Obviously, a win there can get them to 4-4 throughout, the halfway point of their season. So that's a game that I know may not be on a lot of people's radars, but I think it could be a nice test for the Colts, and it could be a test for the Steelers as well, especially if they can win it. I've got Vikings and Chiefs. Obviously, that is a top matchup that's going on. Of course, you got the Vikings. I think they've won 4 straight. I think you mentioned that earlier. Of course, all-world running back in Dalvin Cook. They're on the road, though. Will it be Pat Mahomes? I don't know. I haven't heard anything on that yet. I don't know if
it shouldn't be.
Yeah,
I should not be playing yet.
I wouldn't think so either. But I don't know. I mean, these guys are young and they try to come back, and even before maybe they want to. So got to check that situation out there. But I still think the Chiefs are a good team. And we'll see. Can the Chiefs afford to lose another game in a row? I don't think so. But it's going to be a tough test. Any other games you got? I mean, I know I've got other ones, but
look, I like watching all football. I
can
me too. Talk about storylines from every single NFL game that's on this plate this upcoming weekend. Particularly, to add on some of what you said, the Vikings and the Chiefs. I understand why Patrick Mahomes is seeing his team lose, despite playing pretty well against a very good Packers football team. He's the reigning MVP from last season. Of course, He wants to be out there with his guys. If he feels like he can throw a football, he feels like he should be playing. It's the Chiefs' job to make sure that they protect him against himself. Kind of like Kevin Durant. Don't let that happen. Don't be that team. For me, a couple games, the Texans and the Jags. The Texans right now sitting tied. They're a half game behind the Indianapolis Colts, really a game and a half, because they did lose their one matchup against the Colts earlier this season to top the AFC South. But we do have the Jacksonville Jags that are at 4-4, only one game behind the Texans. And I think it's an interesting matchup with two teams that are likely going to be fighting for a wild card or the division by the end of the season. So that matchup is kind of under the radar, but I'm definitely keeping an eye on it. And the other one, the rematch of the double doink. The Bears and the Philadelphia Eagles, two teams right now that are incredibly desperate for a win to have any remote chance of trying to either stay competitive in the division for the Philadelphia Eagles, or for the Bears trying to fight their way and stay in wild card contention, because they're not out of it yet. As much as the Bears fans probably think that you might as well just say, oh, it's a wrap for the season, they're not out of it yet. They're not. They've only lost 4 games. If they can right the ship, then they can still make a push.
Yep. I mean, I agree. Obviously, as a Bears fan here, that's something that I'm looking forward to. But it's just gonna be such a tough task, Tater. I mean, listen, I wouldn't be surprised actually if the Bears came out and played well. But again, they kind of played well last week, and something happened that it just didn't work out in their favor. So I'm not sure if this team is really snake bit at this point, if they're really good or if they're really bad. But it's certainly an interesting contest because, again, like you said, the Bears, they're not out of it, but man, it's looking a little bleak. And of course, on the other side of that, you got the Philadelphia Eagles. They're coming off of a win though on the road against the Bills. So not sure what that says about the Bills or the Eagles really at this point of the season. But of course, a win is a win, and they need to continue that. They need to keep pacing the NFC East, do the Eagles.
And I know one of my boys right now, Matt Bucks, is a huge Bills fan, but I'm going to go ahead and say this. I don't think that the Bills are one of the worst 5-2 teams I've ever seen in my life. And I know Matt Bucks, he hears me say that, he's gonna rip into me and any other Bills fan. But you can't tell me that a team that had to rally to come back against the Miami Dolphins, and then Josh Allen is still turning the ball over at an alarming rate. I will say that they have a very competitive defense. They do, 100%. And one of the best secondaries in the NFL, I still think, even though, Wentz did some okay things against them. But for the most part, I mean, it was only they held Wentz and Tom Brady to under 200 yards in this Bills secondary. They can do some real good things. And considering today's NFL, where you throw the ball a lot, I mean, the Bills are certainly a threat if they can get competent quarterback play. Right. And play calling, by the way. Devin Singletary should have more than 7 carries in a given game.
Agree. Yeah, there's no explanation for that for me. And the Bills, obviously they've got room to grow. I mean, Josh Allen is still young. He's still young. So, I would agree with you on that. That's why I didn't have them in my power rankings anymore. They didn't look good last week. But again, if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, you're trying to string together a couple of wins now. You got to do that to again, like I said, keep pacing the NFC East.
Yeah, try to keep pacing the NFC East. The Bears trying to fix a multitude of ailments on their football team up to this point. And we'll talk one more time because someone did bring up the Bucs.
Sure.
Tampa Bay versus the Seahawks. Personally, I don't think that the Bucs are going to have an answer for Russell Wilson and company. I don't.
Well, and I mentioned this a couple of minutes ago when I was talking about the Seahawks. They've already lost 2 games at CenturyLink. I just don't see them losing a third this season. I mean, I really don't. And again, those 2 games that they lost were to pretty good teams, as we've come to find out, in the Baltimore Ravens and the New Orleans Saints. So I just don't see Tampa Bay going all the way up to Seattle and being competitive.
I'll be happy if they're competitive. Let's put it that way as a Buccaneers fan. So I don't think they're going to – and by the way, in man coverage where Todd Bowles likes to bring pressure and dial up blitzes, I mean, that means you're going to have to try to lock up Tyler Lockett, no pun intended, and Metcalf in man coverage, which I don't think – I mean, outside of Carlton Davis, I'm not really a big fan of them. Out of that secondary anyway, yet they still got a lot of growing to do. As far as before we wrap up here, I know it's football, but Uncle Pete saying I have the Nats to win the World Series in what has been a very weird World Series where every single game has been won by the road team. When the hell has that ever happened and led to a Game 7 in a World Series? Ever?
I'm not sure if it's ever happened, Tater. And you know me, I'm a big baseball fan here myself. So, I'm certainly excited about the best 2 words in sports. It is Game 7 tonight. I think they're getting ready to do first pitch right now. It has certainly been a weird series. A dominant performance by Strasburg last night, though. Clutch performance on the road. Scherzer, I think, is taking the ball in Game 7. And listen, if you got that guy on the mound, if you're Washington, you're feeling pretty good about it.
Right. I mean, and you knew Strasburg, who has been pretty much treated like a prodigy ever since he arrived and was drafted by the Washington Nationals. I mean, it was good to see him deliver in the biggest moment. Like, that was the culmination of why you take a guy number 1 overall. And nice to see that. And now we have a Game 7. I thought the 2 best words in all of sports were Vinny Testaverde, to be honest with you. As a Bucs fan, man, growing up, I was like, yeah, Vinny's the next coming, man. He's the next big real deal, baby. Woo!
No way.
Yeah, no shit. No way, no shit. And that's how we're going to go ahead and end it here on this episode of The Go Route here on Fantasy Focus, brought to you by the Original Hooters. If you have not yet done so, if this is your first time coming across our live show here on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe and the like button. We really appreciate any and all the support. Also, if you're tuning into us, however you digest your podcast, whether it's on Google Play, Spotify, iTunes or iHeartRadio, which you can find us on now, iTunes, et cetera, go ahead and subscribe to our podcast and drop us a review. We really appreciate any and all the support. And Jay, you got what's your sign-off line? I feel like I have an obnoxious one. I'm assuming you have something way cooler than mine.
I'm still trying to come up with something, man. I really am. I actually like yours. I don't think it's bad at all. So I'm trying to come up with something catchy that I actually like, man. I'm my own worst critic. So when I come up with something that I like, I'll definitely bring it to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, if going off the top of the head, his name is Jay. He likes to lay by the bay and make things out of clay. And tell everybody listening to this podcast to have a nice day.
Ooh, I like it. You got some bars, man. You got bars.
Dude, that was straight from Big Daddy. I can't take credit for that. So until next time, later, says the tape.